Hello, everybody. Good evening to everyone. And we'll start with today's session of Materia Medicum. We are discussing regarding the injury remedies, and series is going on very nicely. Yesterday we have discussed one remedy, that is a Bryonium. The complementary counterpart of Bryony is Rustox, a very commonly used remedy in our day-to-day homeopathic practice. In fact, most commonly other than Naxomica is the Rustox, because there are many cases with which patient approaches to you, and many a times this remedy comes in your pain, in your mind, because it has very close relationship with the human being. This remedy, as Alan has mentioned, Alan has given, it has given at least 2.5 pages. So it is quite difficult to finish it in one lecture. And that's why I have decided that in today's session, I'm going to share more and more cases about the Rustox, where we used to prescribe remedy very commonly. That is the first thing I will going to do. And then we'll start with the Allen's aspect of understanding the remedy. So it will be divided in two different lectures. First, today we'll finish about the cases and some part of the Allen's keynotes. And then in next session, the remaining part of the Allen's keynotes regarding the Rustox. Because it is a big remedy and one has to understand this remedy with multiple aspects. There are many facets to the Rustox. And those I want to share with you. So when we think about the Rustox, we think about the rheumatism, and that is the only thing which remains in our mind. And we used to consider only few modalities with which we keep Rustox in our mind. First thing is that elements from getting wet or elements from damp cold weather, stiffness, aggravation by complete rest, amelioration by continued motion, aggravation from rising from the seat. These are the few things with which we recollect the Rustox, and that is the all. That's all we think that is the Rustox. It's not so. In fact, this remedy is useful in your day-to-day practice for many, many, many things. First common thing for which the patient comes to you, and I have treated many patients with the help of Rustox, is the common presentation fever blisters, which is also called as a herpes simplex. Many times patient comes specifically in this damp rainy weather, the weather is going on, and during this weather, lot of patients comes to you with this typical vesicular eruptions around the mouth, basically on the low chin area or around upper lip or on the lips, and patient talks in one simple word, Dr. Shinalai. This is the sentence which they used to use in Marathi. So if you confirm two important things along with that, just see the tongue. And tongue is characteristic of Rustox, everyone knows. That is a triangular red tip tongue, and that comes typically during this weather. It is the commonest presentation with which patient comes. And second confirmation is that see the weather. If it is cold damp weather or rainy weather associated, then your prescription is always a Rustox. But question arises how to give a Rustox in such cases. If you give 30, you'll get next day the aggravation of all complaints. The fever blisters gets increased. Here, it is most superficial part. You require the Rustox in 6 potency, you require Rustox in 3C potency. Few doses are sufficient, which covers the patient very nicely without causing trouble to the patient. Most common prescription, herpes simplex. Keep it in your mind. The herpes simplex, that is fever blister in common language, Rus is very, very, very important remedy in acute states. Another remedy, if it is chronic fever blister and it recurs again and again, then you have to compare it with the Natrum muriaticum. Natrum muriaticum, where also you get the fever blisters, and these blisters are chronic and recurrent in Natrum. But tongues differentiate the remedy. In Natrum, it is a typical map tongue is there. In Natrum, few more things are there, cracks at the corners of mouth as well as middle of lower lip with a greasy face. That is very typical with the Natrum, which you can observe, which you can get over there. So these are the things which are visible, and that's why you can easily differentiate these two remedies. Second important case for which I used to use Restox very commonly is herpes zoster. Herpes zoster, this is one remedy which never fails. So important. If you are treating the herpes zoster, I will give you the solution and 99% you will get the results. Restox along with Ferramphos 6x and Calimure 6x. And repeat it. Restox in low potency. And repeat that 2-3 days and you'll see the patient recover so fast. It never fails. I have tried it all varieties of rus. Now, all varieties of herpes zoster, whether it comes in the eye areas, also affecting the eyes, whether it happens to be there on the chest, whether it is happens to be on genital herpes. Rus is one of the most common remedy utilized for herpes zoster because the eruptions are very typical. They are vesicular eruptions where associated with erysipelatous condition. So eruptions which contains fluid associated with the redness of the skin, beneath the skin there is a redness, that is erysipelatous condition. It is very close to the APs. But in Restox you have confirmatory tongue and second weather association. So Restox comes very quite closer. The APs, patient is hot, this patient is chilly, Rus is chilly. APs is thirstless, this remedy is thirsty. So you can easily differentiate Rus and APs, but both of them are inimical to each other. If you are giving Restox, you should not give APs, or if you are given APs, should not give the Restox because these remedies having very close relationships, and that's why they are inimical to each other. So that is rus is very important remedy for the herpes zoster. So first case we have discussed is related with the herpes simplex. Second important thing for which the rus is prescribed very commonly is herpes zoster. Third important thing for which I used to prescribe Restox is acute rheumatoid arthritis cases. Acute rheumatism or acute rheumatic fever, both things. In both cases, you get this typical presentation. Patient comes to you in agony with severe joint pains. The small joints of the hands, bilaterally symmetrical, gets affected with involved with the swelling over there. Metacarpophalangeal joint or post PIP joint, they gets involved, inflamed over there, and they become so stiff. And patient is associated with a lot of fever, and patient goes into the restless state. He cannot lie down. Patient complaints gets aggravated, tossing it up, agony. He moves here and there, and he's complaining a lot. And that variety is typical of acute rheumatoid arthritis. And the person explains, Doctor, I feel better by some warm application. Most important modality for us. Second important, he cannot lie down in one place. It aggravates. He continuously moves here and there. That is another thing which one should look for. Third important thing, if there is typical weather persistent, damp, rainy weather, Third important criteria. Fourth important is that the triangular at tip tongue. If these things are there in acute rheumatoid arthritis attacks or acute rheumatic fever attacks, Rus do the wonderful work. It is the remedy of choice. Only question arises, what potency? Because we come to the conclusion of right remedy, but we never come to the conclusion of right potency. My suggestion in such types of cases is always to give Rus in high potency, 1 m or 10 m. Few doses first, not too much repetition. Just observe. In acute state, always observe the patient. Ask the patient to visit you to next day so that you can easily catch the patient's state. So you give a Restox in 10 m potency, 3 doses, just see, ask the patient next day, and you observe that there are a lot of changes which happens within a day. Within 24 hours, patient becomes normal. Many times it happens in acute states. And that's why in acute rheumatoid arthritis, Rus is the wonderful remedy. So this is the third variety for which I used to prescribe the Restox. So we have discussed first herpes simplex, herpes zoster, acute rheumatoid arthritis. The fourth variety for which I used to use Restox, which I have discussed while discussing the Ruta on that day, is the tennis elbow. Rus has a typical sprains. It is a sprain remedy. Ankle sprain, sprains of extensor muscles is characteristic of Restox. I have told you the Restox acute rheumatoid arthritis 1 m or 10 m. Don't repeat too much. In extensor sprains, that is the very typical of a tennis elbow, Rus is very important remedy. But here, whenever you are treating a patient of tennis elbow, give a support. It is a sprain. The fibers of the tendons which gets at the level of origin over there, they get sprained. They are little bit torn. This is an injury. If you don't give rest to that part, it never heals. Either you ask the patient to use the sling, that will be better. If it is not possible, nowadays the tennis elbow belt you can get in market at the surgical shops. You apply that tennis elbow belt, because of which there will be a support to the hand, and patient, even though patient lifts something, it never causes trouble to the fibers, and then it heals. Restox is a wonderful remedy for the tennis elbow. Ruta on that day we have discussed is a very good remedy for the golfer's elbow, because it has been mentioned very clearly, flexor muscle sprain is there with the Ruta. Robin Murphy has mentioned Ruta for the tennis elbow, but my suggestion, whatever experience I have experienced, this is the classification or this is the differentiation which I have done on the basis of their actions, and I have utilized it successfully in many of cases. What happens? Many people just prescribe Restox without utilizing these weapons, that a tennis elbow belt or keeping a sling. Patient never heals, because you are producing injury every time. Once you lift something, there is always an injury. How to diagnose the tennis elbow? That is one important thing. Anyone knows that what is the test for diagnosing the tennis elbow? There is a simple test, is that ask the patient to grip his fist, and it should be kept like that, and ask him to take it up, and you just press and ask against the pressure, just lift it up. And if patient starts lifting, you put over your finger over here, and patient says, yes, there is a pain, doctor, there is a pain. This is typical of diagnostic test of tennis elbow. So this, if it is persistent, if it is present, Then first remedy to be think of is rust oxide. Many people uses the calibichromicum because it is pain in spot. But this pain in spot is not the original pain. It is because there is a local injury, trauma. It is not original. It is a traumatic because this has been sprained. And why it is called as a tennis elbow? Because while playing the backhand shot, if the ball comes very fast and person has not considered that much of strength he requires, he has kept racket in a little bit low with a not with the fixed force, then it just jerks over there and because of it turns. Rust is the remedy, first remedy to be think of. And this rust talks should be given in again here 1 m or 10 m potency in repeated doses. It requires repetition for the for such things. So this is two important thing for which I used to prescribe the Rustox. One more case for which I used to use Rustox during this weather, if a patient comes with the urticaria. Other than APIS, this remedy is a wonderful remedy for urticaria. Very important remedy. But in urticaria, it depends how the patient presents. Urticaria is very close to the APIS. Here also the urticaria is there. With urticaria, the erysipelatous condition is there. So you get both the things. With triangular red tip tongue and rainy weather and urticaria associated sometimes with joint pains or myalgia, Rustox is the remedy. And here you have to utilize depending upon the situation whether to go for 200, 1 m, 10 m, depends. Judge the susceptibility. So urticaria here it should be compared with the APIS like erysipelatous condition of APIS. So already we have discussed that. So those cases we have discussed, and one last but most important thing which I want to discuss. Many patient comes to you with chest pains. They comes to you and they, doctor, I am getting chest pain. Just I want to check my blood pressure and see whether any heart element is there. And he looked anxious. He's in a little bit anxious mood, tense mood. You check his blood pressure, founds normal. Everything is fine. You put just one question: why do you are worrying so much? He explained that, doctor, just nearby our house, one man has died because of the heart attack, and because of which I am having the I'm having fear in my mind whether I'm suffering from the same, and that's why I checked my blood pressure. With these aspects, many patients comes. Someone had cancer, so they comes to you immediately to check whether they had a cancer. Yes, it is the rubric is fear superstitious. Very wonderful remedy. Earlier there was only Rustox mentioned. Now they have added the Cona Immaculatum also in complete repertory. But Rus is the remedy for fear superstitious. This is superstitious fear. And Rus plays wonderful role in such cases. Just give 2-3 doses of Rustox in high potency. That's all finished. Nothing is required. Patient feels better immediately after taking the doses. That is fear superstition. And these types of patients always presents to you. So these are varieties of cases which we have discussed regarding the rust. Now we'll little bit learn about Allen's aspect of Rustox, and in Monday session we'll complete the remedy. So few things regarding the Allen's which we'll discuss in today's session. So rust toxicodendron poison oak or from Anacardiaceae family. Very important remedy from this family other than anacardi. There are two remedies which are very close with the Rus family. Rus species is Rus toxicodendron, Rus radicans. There are many more in Rus. Hahnemann have proved Rus radicans and explain the Rus toxicodendron and both are same and etc. There were many disputes, but ultimately these two species there is very minute difference between them, and are much similar. And that thereafter the proving was confirmed with Rus toxicodendron. So poison oak, Anacardiaceae, adapted to the persons of rheumatic diseases. See the same sentence again, but see the difference in next part. Bad effects of getting wet. This is the theme of the rust talks. Bad effects of getting the wet, especially after being overheated. Patient is overheated and he get wet and he suffers. Like a bryonia, very close. But bryonia, it happens in during summer weather. Here it happens in damp weather. This is the difference between rust and bryonia. Rust is very acute in action. It has only 1 to 7 days action. Bryonia is subacute. 7 to 21 days action is there with the bryonia. See, this is the difference between these two. Then further he says elements. Elements for anything. Whenever he mentions elements for any complaints, whether it is for headache, whether it is for GI troubles, whether it is for backache, whether it is for anything, these elements are applicable. So, what elements he mentions? Elements from spraining and straining a single part, muscle or tendon. So, when you try to reach to the high and there is a catch in the back, patient talks in Marathi, usan bharli. That is a catch in the spinal cord, in the muscles covering the spinal cord. That sprain, Rustock sprain. All of a sudden, patient tries to raise the bucket filled with water and he has not applied the proper pressure, and suddenly there is a back sprain. Sometimes it might be like a tennis elbow sprain. So from spraining and straining single parts, muscles or tendons. Most important remedy for ankle sprain. Person is walking, all of a sudden twisting of the feet occurs. This is one remedy along with Ruta is one for such thing. If it is chronic sprain, Calcarea plays very vital role. Nux he has mentioned, but Nux is not so much useful remedy over here. Elements from overlifting, particularly from stretching high up to reach the things which I have discussed. Elements lying on damp ground. This is most important modality. The persons who used to remain in damp basements and suffers from joint pains, suffers from muscle pains, musculopathies, this is the remedy. Elements from too much summer bathing in lake or river. See, this is again, patient comes to you with severe body ache, joint pains, and etc. And they explain, doctor, what we have done. There was a water in the river, and just we went for swimming, and we have done a good amount of swimming over there. And since morning, I am suffering from this body ache and backache and joint pains and etc. And if it happens during summer weather, this is one more remedy which other than bryonia to be think of. Modalities are different in bryonia. Here it is more stiffness. Rust is the remedy for stiffness. Bryonia, it is more stitching pains. Rust is better by movement. Bryonia is aggravated by movement. Rust is aggravated by rest. Bryonia is better by rest. So these are modalities where one has to think and differentiate. But these elements of rust are very important elements one should not forget. So all the elements which mentioned over there are very important when you consider rust talks. Then second important thing, affects the fibrous tissue, especially the right side more than left. Underline this sentence in your book. Fibrous tissue. Where are the fibers? The fibers are there on the muscles, in the muscle fibers. Around the joints, lot of fibers are there. So frozen shoulder, this is the remedy one should not forget. It is the remedy which removes the stiffness of the joint in high potency in repeated doses. For the purpose of palliation, you give the Restox in 10 potency in repeated doses. It works definitely. It relieves the spasm because it relieves the specifically the stiffness which develops over there. The site of action is very important. In case of Restox, it is fibrous tissue. In case of rhododendron, it is fibrous tissue plus cartilaginous tissue. In case of ruta, it is cartilaginous tissue plus periosteum. In case of bryonia, it is serous tissue, serous membrane. So one has to understand, for that purpose, the anatomy plays very vital role. Anatomy gives you or defines the action. Knowledge of anatomy defines the action. So this is too important. Affects the fibrous tissue, especially the right side more than the left. Rhododendron is very close to the Restox. Modalities are very close regarding the damp weather aggravation and etc. But rhododendron is generally felt better by rest and aggravated by movements. Serous membrane. Whenever it has been written in Allen's keynote, dash, serous, and then bryonia, it has been related not with Restox, it is related with the bryonia, which is mentioned later on. So this aspect, rhododendron, specifically affecting fibrous tissue, serous membranes are covered with the bryonia. And that's why effusions are quite common with the bryonia, which we have discussed on that day. Now we'll just finish the pains of this Restox and then we'll stop. Yes, rhododendron affects the aggravated during the thunderstorm. So this is the common thing. Now we'll go toward the pains. Pains wherever it may be, whether they are related with joints, whether they are related with the muscles, whether they are related with the abdomen or chest, anywhere. Pains as if sprained. So as if something has been sprained, tan lagela. As if a muscle or tendon was torn from its attachment. That's why it is wonderful remedy for the tennis elbow. As if sprained, as if muscle or tendon was torn from its attachment, as if bones were scraped with the knife. This is again a sprain. It is as if the bones were scraped. That much severe the straining and spraining is there at the origin or at the insertion of muscle. Pains worse after midnight. This is the common thing which happens to be there in Restox. Common thing. That midnight aggravation. And that's why Restox should not be given generally at night. It should be given in the morning. Worse after midnight and in wet, rainy weather. That is the common modality. Every complaint gets aggravated during rainy, wet weather. Pains, affected parts sore to touch. So, affected parts are very painful to touch, sore to touch. That is the important modality which you can get over there. What happens because of pains? Because of pains, the person becomes lame. He cannot utilize the joint. He cannot utilize his muscle. So lameness. Second important characteristic is stiffness, which is the important characteristic of the Restox. And pain on first moving after a rest. First, so patient wakes up and it is quite difficult to stand first and then put first step. That movement is quite difficult. And then when he starts walking, then he becomes free. This happens because of stiffness. And when that stiffness gets released, patient continues walking. So this is too important. So on first moving after rest or on getting up in the morning, whole night patient sleeps and their body is fully stiff. And in the morning, it is quite difficult to turn and to rise, and it is that stiffness is Rostock stiffness, ameliorated by walking and continued motion. So when patient walks, this stiffness disappears, then this lameness disappears. So these things are very, very essential things one has to understand regarding while understanding the RAS. So we have discussed few aspects of RAS where we have discussed one important. First, we have discussed about the uh, cases where we have discussed many different things where it has been closely associated with herpes simplex, then herpes zoster, then third case which we have discussed related with the acute rheumatoid arthritis. So these are the things which are quite common generally with the RAS. Then we have discussed that urticaria, acute urticaria during damp weather. Then we have discussed it is a very good remedy for pure superstitious concept. So there are many things which we have discussed. The tennis elbow, yes, definitely it is a very important thing. Shahrukh has asked one pens tearing asunder in means it is as if broken into the pieces. That much severe pain is there. Pens tearing asunder. That is, it has been as if torn into the pieces. That is what is the asunder. Sir, can we call sprain as a चमक? स्प्रेन म्हणजे चमक नाही, न्यूरॅल्जिया म्हणजे चमक. न्यूरॅल्जिक पेन्स त्याला चमक म्हणायचं. स्प्रेन म्हणजे एखादी गोष्ट ताणली गेली, आपण मराठीत त्याला वेगळा शब्द वापरतो. वी यूज टू यूज अ डिफरंट वर्ड इन मराठी. स्प्रेन, मुरगळणे. करेक्ट. दिस इज व्हॉट थॉट आय थॉट ऋतुजा हॅज रिटन. Sir, can you please put light on acute muscle spasm where back is stiff, aggravated by slight motion? We call a common thundervat. I could not understand, Amit. Can you explain more? Acute muscle spasm, yes, definitely this is the remedy which one must utilize. Acute spasm where patient can't move, yes, this is the remedy, but here you have to utilize high potency, no low potency. You have to be with high potency, then it works. Lachakne, yes, Rostox is remedy, but Ruta is more useful.
सर मुरगळ आणि लचक मध्ये काय डिफरन्स आहे मग?
थोडंसं मुरगळणं वेगळं, लचकणं वेगळं. मुरगळण्यामध्ये स्प्रेन होतो. We used to get a sprain over there. In lachakne, that is related with the certain things related with the knee. Specifically, it is related with the knee joint when the meniscus comes in between and patient when patient walks, all of a sudden he gives away. That's why there is one word in Kalika, back and legs gives out, or sometimes patient sits in that place because of that. That is a typical gives out sensation is lachakne. So that's all for today. We don't have time too much. So thank you being there, everyone. There are many people who are joining from distance also. So thanks a lot. We'll continue with the Rush Talks only on Monday's session. We'll discuss many aspects of Rush Talks because Alan has given many things about the Rush Talk, and all are important from practice point of view as well as from exam point of view. So thanks everyone. We'll meet again on Monday for both the session. Ask your friends to join this wonderful session.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Good night.